Hey everybody, Nick here, and today, oh boy, do I have a video that makes me make a lot of hard decisions, but also brings me a lot of joy, and that is my Gear of the Year video for 2019. The way we're going to do it is, first off, we'll talk about my favorite light, pen, and watch, because those are important parts of the channel as well. I'll give a couple of other honorable mentions for the pieces of gear that didn't necessarily fit into the overall schema, but worth, mentioning. And then I'll jump into the knife game, which I know is what a lot of you folks are interested in most, and I'll talk about my favorite piece in the budget category of 0 to 100, in the mid-range category 100 to 300 bucks, and then in the high-end category above 300, and then at the very end I'll choose my absolute favorite pocket knife for the year. So let's go ahead and start off in the other gear world. Favorite light this year was actually quite easy. It's this little guy right here. This is the JetBeam RRT01. This is a great light. It's a rotary light. It has a really just amazing user interface. It's doing pretty much everything right. My only wish was that it had a USB recharge on board and that they had an 18650 option, but aside from that, honestly, it's really, really good, and so this was a very easy choice for flashlight of the year. The only other contender was the TM10K Nightcore 10,000 lumens, but it's just so ridiculously priced, and this is just so damn good and so easy to recommend to everybody as I throw it against myself. So there you go. That's my light of the year. Pen-wise, for me, this is the standout. This is the Tactile Turn Bolt Action Pen. The other real competitor was the Urban Survival Gear Mini Tie Scribe Bolt, which I actually like a lot, and which might actually be a slightly better choice for me, but because it was just a mini version of something that existed, honestly, it didn't feel like it was, it would feel a little weird. So I decided to go with this guy. They followed up a really, really good a really, really bad bolt action pen with a really good one, and that brings me a lot of joy, and so I'm very glad to see this guy, and it is absolutely 100% a beautiful thing and a gem. So this guy wins Pen of the Year. Watch-wise, this was actually a really exciting year with three major contenders. The Casio Oceanus T200, which is not this guy that I just brought on the screen, but is it's the sort of budget-friendly, I mean, 500 bucks, but still, new Oceanus version that is just absolutely incredible. Tony Scullambrini of Gear Geeks Live bought that off of me and, fell in absolute love, and I can totally see it. So in terms of your more budget-friendly options, that's a pretty good choice. Then we had the Omega Seamaster 300 with the wave dial and everything. That is, I believe, new for 2019, if not 2018. But still, this has spent a great deal of time on my wrist. But ultimately, the winner for me is this guy. This is the Casio Oceanus S5000C. This is an absolutely amazing wristwatch. This kicked out of my collection the Breitling Aerospace, and frankly, if you made me go down to one wristwatch, this would be the one that I chose at this point in time. This is just so damn good from a function perspective, from a looks perspective, from a just lightweight excellence perspective. This is just such a damn good watch that even though it's a very expensive Casio, this particular edition with the crystals and whatnot is about 1,800 bucks, if you can find one, that is. But they have a version of it without the fancy crystals that's 1,100 bucks regularly available, but it is just so damn good, and I have been absolutely blown away with this, and this absolutely wins Watch of the Year. So in terms of light, pen, and watch, yeah, we've got the RRT01, we've got the Tactile Turn Bolt, and then we've got the Casio over here. But let's go on ahead and talk about a couple of other honorable mentions of pieces of gear that didn't really fit into the best category, but I feel like deserve a shout-out. One of those things is the Hinderer Knives Full Track. The thing that makes the Full Track most interesting is not necessarily, I don't think it's a great knife for me particularly. It's not something I'm after, but the fact that it includes the integral tool that you can just pop out of the backspacer is a technology that I absolutely love. As somebody who absolutely appreciates, as well as space for the spare different washes and whatnot, this was an innovation that I think is very subtle in a lot of ways, and perhaps not the most useful thing ever, but I absolutely loved it. And although I didn't like the knife itself, I liked it a lot, but it didn't, work its way into the final edition. I wanted to give a shout out to that because that is really an excellent choice. Next thing is the CRKT Provoke, or the Caswell Morphing Karambit, the Provoke being the production version of it. This is a knife that I would never ever consider carrying or frankly owning. It's a ridiculous thing at many levels, but it is a different ridiculous thing. He has created a Karambit style knife that is a folding knife effectively, but in a really intuitive way. That knife was sort of so out of left field that I I have to acknowledge the excellence of it there. And CRKT did a really good job of bringing it to life, so to speak. That was probably one of the better CRKTs released this year as well, and so I'm a big fan of that guy. Next thing on the list is the Drm Knives TCK. The version 2.0 here. This is a slip joint style knife with the blade made of tungsten carbide. It is a really cool little piece. It is actually a carryable knife, and the fact that they're doing a completely different blade material than anybody else, that really adds a little something to the mystique. And so I have to say, this is a very excellent and is probably the most innovative sort of thing that came out this new year. And then finally, this isn't a piece of gear, but this is a human, and I feel like it's a human who deserves an explicit acknowledgement. And that is Rme Thomas over at Knife Steel Nerds. This is a metallurgist, actually the son of Devin Thomas, who does Damascus style steel, but a metallurgist and an incredible writer. He's done very accessible science writing and does a really good job of making these really detailed sorts of steel comparisons in a way that is both scientifically rigorous, at least to the best of my ability to analyze it, but as well as being understandable and interesting to your everyday people. His work has been I have learned so damn much about steel from reading him, and I'm yet to hear anybody say anything other than, yeah, he knows his stuff. And so I'm a really big fan of it. I'm a Patreon patron for Knife Steel Nerds 100%. And I'm so glad that he is doing what he is doing in the community for us right now. So those were my honorable mentions. The Hinderer Full Track, the Cricket Provoke, Drm TCK. None of them really fit into the best world of things. Oh, and I'm sorry, Rme Thomas, who is, of course, not a piece of gear, but is a piece of the gear community that I really appreciate. So there you go. Now let's go on ahead and go into the knife category. First off, a couple of honorable mentions that I'd like to bring in, and we'll start off on the budget end, right? Of course, with complete and total bias, there is the Knick Shabazz Victorinox Classic. Oh yeah. Sorry, I have absolutely no justification, but this is a new knife that I never thought was going to exist, and I'm just tickled pink that it did, and that it's sold out. At least the initial run did. I'm filming this before the second one drops, but nevertheless, it's pretty damn cheap, and it brings me joy, but that doesn't, again, bias. Next thing is the Gerber Knives Fastball. This little guy right here. This is, again, a one that I made at the Gerber factory and whatnot, so, I'll admit a little bit of bias for this particular knife. However, the Fastball itself is a very nice knife. It is just barely at the budget line. It is exactly $100. And it does definitely have some things that they can work on. For instance, the thickness of the edge could definitely be improved. And, a couple of other little things. But honestly, this was a very big surprise coming out of Gerber. Having just excellent action, having, there's a lot of joy to be found in the Fastball here, and I think it's a sign of good progress, even if Gerber isn't completely out of the woods yet. So, or isn't out of the woods yet. Well, I'm not even going to give the completely. But anyways, this was definitely something that brought me a lot of joy to see, and I think it's a really good sign, and it's a sign that Gerber's design team can probably pull them out of this, provided that their production can keep up. And so that was my second honorable mention. My third honorable mention in the budget category is the Sog Terminus Xr. This was another one that was kind of out of a left field a little bit here, but I gotta say, the Terminus turned out to be a very compelling knife. It was done well. It had a lot of benefits to it, good detent, good flipping. I was pretty impressed with the Terminus. And so, at least to me, those were three honorable mentions. They didn't make the final list, but they were quite good and absolutely something I was willing to consider. First off, on the budget line, though, what we have here is the Spyderco Paramilitary 3 Lightweight, or the Para 3 Lightweight. This is a really cool piece, in that it is very lightweight. That's obviously what you'd expect from it, right? But it combines a reasonable price point, a good, reasonable budget steel. This is just a really nice piece, and in many ways represents sort of the spiritual successor, at least in my mind, to the Spyderco Delica, which, as you all know, is one of my very favorite pocket knives. The stock's a little thick. It ain't perfection, but at the same time, it's damn good. And so this was very easily one of the best budget knives of this year. Second in the budget category is a knife that I don't have anymore, but is the Civivi McKenna. It's designed by Elijah Isham, and it's a very nice, very slicey little knife. This one was one of the ones they did in a Damascus-style steel. And pardon, of course, the low-budget printing. But the McKenna is an absolutely very nice knife. And it combines a really nice, easy-to-use front flip in action, combines thin blade stock, combines a whole bunch of stuff at a price point which is using, Damascus-style steel under $100, I believe. There's a lot of value in this guy, and frankly, it's just a really addictive little action to play with. I remember the first time I saw one of those, it was like, oh, that's fun. And it really is a very fun knife. And then finally on the budget front is this little guy right here. This is the CJRB, which is the budget brand out of Artisan Cutlery, a brand new brand for 2019. The CJRB Centros, designed by Dylan Mallory. This is actually a very, very nice knife. It kind of goes up there, I think, in the pantheon of reasonably good budget, of quite good budget knives that are very reasonably priced. And so I feel like this is... and it's also a lot more designed than a lot of the sort of... you get a lot of very vanilla, ho-hum sorts of knives coming out of these Chinese micro brands, but this one actually has a very nice design sense and a very nice action. There's a whole lot to love about the Centros here. And so, to me at least, these are the three budget knives that absolutely 100% win the day for me. When it comes down to it, though... I think the ultimate winner has to be the McKenna. The reason I say that, and so my main budget knife for this year is the McKenna, because honestly, it combined a really, really nice construction, very, very nice cutting performance, thin blade stock, things like that, with the Damascus upgrade option still coming in at a very good budget-friendly price, and it was just well designed. I like Elijah's work a lot, and I think this is one of his best user knives that he's ever done, and so I very much appreciated that. And so the McKenna, to me, 100% is the winner. On the mid-range, so this is $100 to $300. First item is not with me at the moment, or actually anymore, is the Cold Steel 8015. This was actually claimed by a shipping tragedy, but this was, I think, stolen out of the box, which is pretty unpleasant, but nevertheless, the 8015 is an amazing freaking pocket knife. I've already reviewed the knife. I reviewed it before I actually sent it off, but then, more importantly, I reviewed its custom progenitor. And you know what? This knife for $100 and some odd is better than, it's not better than, but it's like 90% as good as the custom version. And considering that Demko is works for Cold Steel, he is very much in there. I could see him trying to really differentiate the custom, but no, they went for it. They created a knife that is almost as good as the custom knife for a sixth of the price, and that is absolutely wonderful. And given that I love the custom one, even at its full price, this turned out feeling like one of the best values of the year. Even if it's not a budget knife, this is a knife that you are getting way, way, way more out of for your dollar than maybe anything else on the table. And so I was very impressed with the 8015, and it's definitely 100% a stellar knife. Next on the mid-range category is this guy right here. This is the Three Rivers Manufacturing Atom. This is a newer version with the fluted carbon fiber scales. I ended up buying this guy at the USN gathering because I love the fluted carbon fiber and because, hey, why not get another Atom, right? So I actually have two of this exact knife. The other one's wearing in my Carter pants at the moment, but I really, really like the Atom a lot. There's a great deal to love about it as a functional everyday tool. Good clip, great blade. Great blade, 20 CV, thin edge, thin blade. Oh, man. I just like this so damn much as a tool. If I had to go down to one knife, this would be a pretty compelling option for it. A little bigger than I expected. And this is, by the way, a follow-up. Last year's winner was the Drm Neutron. So you can think about this as being a bigger Neutron, but they actually made a bunch of improvements, nesting the liner, etc., that I think make this a really compelling option. And so this is 100% a very, very good choice for budget of the year, or mid-range of the year. Then finally, on the mid-range front of the actual winners, of the actual, top 9, is this guy. This is the Doug Ritter RSK01 G2 Mark 1, I want to say. Or Mark 1 G2. This is a version made by Hogue Knives of the Doug Ritter Griptilian, effectively, or the RSK01. But it has an amazing action. It is a very, very nice blade that's ground nice and thin. It's 20 CV. It's made in the USA, and the pricing on it is quite good. I am just a real big fan of this knife. It's not necessarily like high-end pocket jewelry or anything like that, but as a functional tool, damn, this thing is good. I was very, very impressed with this guy for the price point, and so this is 100% on my radar as one of the better mid-range knives of the year. There are actually a couple of honorable mentions for this category that I forgot to mention, but are still honorable, and I'll go there before I do that. One of them is this guy, the Pena Knives Front Flipper Trapper. This is a production version of a custom knife that I actually have, and that was done very, very faithfully. The reason it didn't end up making this list is because he didn't make enough of them. He's going to be doing another round, and hopefully other rounds after that, but had this been done on a more ongoing production basis, had these not sold out within 10 minutes, this would absolutely be in this list right here. But as it stands, it is an amazing little pocket knife, and it's a really good job of adapting a custom knife into something production that's very faithful and very excellent. But nevertheless, this is an honorable mention there. Another honorable mention is the Monterey Bay Knives EWC, the Everywhere Carry. This guy is actually on loan to my buddy Slicey Dicey at the moment, so I can't show it off, but it is a flipping slip joint with a really excellent design for everyday life, as well as not many of the downsides of a slip joint construction. So that's an absolutely excellent choice, and considering it's also bringing compelling value, and it's so different than the rest of the stuff on the table, I was pretty impressed by that guy. And then finally, the Spyderco Khepera CQI edition. They did the Spyderco Khepera, I want to say the year before that. It's an absolutely great knife, but then they redid it with a smoother bushing style pivot, and that just really took it up into the next level. I love the Khepera. I like the CQI version even more. If it was a little bit smaller, I'd probably own one, and even still, there's temptation. But that was a really, really nice choice, and the fact that they went the extra mile to make it better, that's a beautiful thing. And so those are the honorable mentions there. The Pena Front Flipper Trapper, the Monterey Bay WC, and the Khepera CQI. And the three ones that are really top of the pack for me are the Cold Steel AD-15, Drm Atom, and the Ritter RSK-01 Mark 1, or G2 Mark 1. There we go. Mark II. G1 Mark II. You're killing me, Doug. So there you go. Then on the high end, first, a couple of honorable mentions. One of them is this guy right here. This is the CRKT Titanium Homefront. This is the best knife that CRKT has ever made, in my estimation, because it's combining the kinds of crazy innovations that they're usually doing with higher-end construction, higher-end materials, etc. I freaking like this knife a lot. This is 100% a great piece. The biggest problem with it, and the reason that it's not sitting right freaking here, is that they didn't make enough of them. They made it another damn limited edition, and as a result, people can't actually get a hold of them, and that makes me very, very sad. I am not a big fan of limited editions generally, as I've said many times on the channel, and this is one of the ones that hurts more than most, because this is such a good tool, and they just killed it before it started. And so I love that knife, and I think it's one of the best knives of the year on the high end, but it's just not... They're not doing enough of them, and so you got yourself a problem there. Next, honorable mentions. Actually, two more knives that are off this list because they're freaking limited editions, and because, and this is the CKF, Custom Knife Factory Sukhoi, which is, watch my review of it. It's an absolutely beautiful knife, and it's bringing value and finishing at a level that's really, really impressive. Just a beautiful Malyshev design. I like that knife so much. It's too big for me. I would never own it, but I really want to own it. And so that's sort of a situation. And then the 523, which is a Philippe Georget design. Super faithful, super well done, really, really impressive knife. Again, too damn big. However, it was absolutely something I was super excited about and was done very well. And again, both of those would have a very strong sense, particularly the 523, of being right here if they weren't so damn limited. So let's go ahead and put the next guy on the table here. This is the one that makes me a hypocrite. This is the Brian Nadeau Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon Evo. This, too, sadly, was a limited edition. This knife, though, was so damn good that I still have to put it here. It burns me, it chaps me that I have a limited edition knife up on the table right now, but it bothers me immensely, but it was so good that I can't not. This was an example not only of what you can get when you collaborate with a really good overseas factory. This was Brian Nadeau working with Rme Knives to have this made, but getting really amazing grinds, getting Brian Nadeau's detent. This felt all as good as any custom knife, and it just happened to be at a much more accessible price point. So the Nadeau Typhoon Evo was absolutely spectacular. This was easily one of the best knives of this year, and even though you can't get enough of them, or he didn't make enough of them, that is, and so you can't get one. It is absolutely amazing, and it's a knife that it has earned its way up here despite that stupid decision to make it limited. As you can tell, I have a couple of feelings about this. Sorry about that. Anyways, so that's one of the contenders. Second contender here is this guy right here. This is the Quiet Carry Drift. This is a late-breaking contender. This guy was announced formally at Blade Show West in October, but oh my God, is it good? It is a Vanax Super Clean blade. The entire knife is completely rust-proof. It's running on phosphor bronze washers. The blade stock is super thin. The blade stock is about as thin, maybe slightly thicker, if not the same, as the Drm Atom. So again, there's a trend here. People like knives that cut. Manufacturers do recall that. Anyways, super thin blade stock, really, really, really excellent overall. Good ergonomics, good action. The only thing that's, slight frustration is a little bit weakness in the detent there initially, and a little bit of lock bar access trouble, but oh my God, was this thing good. When I handled this guy at the Blade West, it was just like, oh my God. And I think it won best EDC option there. And so this is a very, very easy entry into the high-end version. Then finally on the high-end is actually this little guy right here. This is the Herman Knives Dragonfly. I actually had some debate as to whether the Sting or Dragonfly was going to be the better choice here, but it was very clear to me that Herman Knives needed to be on the list. Because this is really, really good work for the price. You're looking at something that is $550, $600, whatever, someplace in that vicinity there. But you're looking at incredible machining, technical excellence, and action that is just beautiful here, and a relatively high availability, although this video ain't going to help that. And so I was very, very impressed by the Herman's Dragonfly here, and it seems to be a model in regular production, given with some different variants and things like that. But Herman has absolutely impressed me this year, and I'm definitely keeping an eye in the future. And although it ain't perfect, oh my God, is this thing good? And it absolutely earned its way into this high-end bracket. So, the ultimate winners here, I'm sorry, if I were to narrow this down, so these are my 9 versions here. We got the budgets, we got the mid-range in the middle. I already revealed the budget choice is going to be the Civivi McKenna, just because, well, I like large parts of that. In the mid-range here, unfortunately, or fortunately, we're going with the Atom. The reason is, like I said, this is just such a damn good EDC choice that, honestly, if I had to pick one new knife that came out this year to carry, this is just a really, really nice, just daily tool. Then finally on the high end, my choice among the three, even though it's a limited edition, screw you, Brian, and your limited editions, is the Evo Typhoon, because this knife was just so good that I can't say anything otherwise. I have an order, like right now from Brian, I have 3 of his knives on order from this series of overseas collaborations. I've got the Void, I got the Knife Nuts Edition Void, and I've got the Micro Evo Typhoon, which could very easily be here next year. But nevertheless, these 3 to me were very clearly the winners in each category. And so that leaves us with one final task, which is to decide which of these ends up being the knife of the year. But actually, before I go any further, one thing I want to say, and one thing I will say just generally, is that this is not an easy table to get on. I am a picky person, generally speaking, and it really is taking more and more every year to impress me. And so if you are one of the makers who is featured here on this table, and by the way, this is also, I think, the first time in the history of this competition that every knife is from a different company, which I think is a really nice thing. It's a harbinger of really good diversity in the market, and diversity is a virtue. And so I love seeing that here, and seeing a bunch of companies all doing interesting things and making my life real difficult choosing this final solution. I'm sorry, choosing this final choice here. But anyways, the ultimate feeling that I want people to have is if you see a knife up here, you should be proud. If it's up here, it's amazing. If it's one of the finalists, oh my God. And if it wins, then, oh, well, nevertheless. These are all really, really nice knives, as are all the things I've mentioned during today's video. So you should be proud regardless. But ultimately, it comes down to these 3. I keep moving things on and off camera, but hey, why not, right? So these 3. The McKenna Absolutely great knife. It's going to be a little small for some people. Like fundamentally, a lot of people got this guy and they were like, whoa, that thing's really tiny. And so I think for a lot of folks, that'll take it off the table. And I think it's going to be something that is really, it's a great example of pushing the line, both in terms of value, as well as bringing design, great design, down in the low prices. But ultimately, I think that takes it off the table. Then there's the dough. I'm going to be honest here. If this were a knife that was in regular production, this would probably have won. I don't know that 100% because there are still parts of this that drive me a little nuts. But in a lot of ways, the fact that Brian kills each of these releases, the moment he releases it, bothers me both immensely, and it also means that these are just hard to recommend. It's hard to say, you should go out and buy one when you can't go out and buy one anymore. And so there's that. But also the other fundamental thing is that this is going to be a super high-end piece. And you have to justify a super high-end budget price, even though this isn't actually, this is probably the least expensive. I think it is the least expensive of the high-end pieces that we looked at here today. It was so good. It was a custom knife that was made by a factory, and it was just excellent, excellent, excellent. But if it weren't a limited edition, it would be a much harder choice. And ultimately, my choice for the knife of the year is what some would say, probably predictably, the Drm Atom. But the thing is, this is a knife that is just so damn good. And I say that a lot, and I mean that a lot, particularly with this guy, but it has everything that you would want in a folding knife, really. It has a really, really nice action. That action is on washes, which I think is something that is... Well, I hope to see that swinging back a little bit. Bearings are great. They offer some really nice experiences, but good phosphor bronze washes are just spectacular because you get that excellent smoothness. You get all that. Fit and finish is exactly where you want it to see. You get the scale swapping option, which is not something that any of the other knives on the table have. You can go and you can get another set of scales for the Neutron here. For the Atom. You can get another set of scales that are, this is just a random set of Doc Olive micarta on there. And I could swap these guys right back and forth if I wanted to. And so you can get any scales that you'd like on there. And in fact, they're even going to be doing a titanium version of this, where it's going to be a liner lock still, I'm told, but a full titanium body. That's going to be pretty compelling too. But I just absolutely love what they're doing here because at the end of the day, this is one of the best tools for cutting things that came out this year, if not the best tool for cutting things. It has a great steel. It's got a great thin blade with a thin grind and a thin edge. This is just spectacular. And so for me, ultimately, in terms of an everyday tool for cutting things, the Atom absolutely wins. But all of these knives have been spectacular, and all of them have a lot of joy associated with them. So this has been, in many ways, just kind of thinking back a little bit, this has been an amazing year for gear. There have been many, many options here. There have been many, many great choices, and we're seeing a diversity in the market that is, in many ways, absolutely stellar. We're seeing new companies every day, and each of these companies is bringing something new and something interesting to the table. We're seeing old design features, like, for instance, this kind of sliding bar lock, being brought to market by other makers. We're seeing all kinds of brand new collaborations, like Brian Nadeau and Rayot, where he really, really worked with the factory to create something that was better than... well, frankly, anything else Rayot's done. We're seeing all of these really good signs for the future here. I've already talked about some of the things I want to see different in 2019 or in 2020. Like the limited edition thing needs to die. Brian, hear me. Hear me, Brian. I'm sorry. I gotta better hear me, Brian, cough these days. And, I definitely would love to see increasing trends towards thinner blades, slicier cutting machines, that kind of thing. It's kind of nice when knives cut, right? And I also love seeing the specialization, things like making a knife that is completely rust-proof, making a knife that is meant to be lightweight above pretty much anything else and still works out to be a really nice knife, and just craziness, like the 8010 with that, 8015 with that backstrap lock, and those kinds of things. But honestly, 2019 was a year that had really great gear in it. I mean, this is a really strong field of competitors here. There were also some times where it was a little rough, but anyways, nonetheless, there was a lot of great gear that came out this year, and I'll also throw the pen and watch and light on the screen here as well. Great gear for year, great year for year, I suppose too, by transitivity or something along those lines. But anyways, these are the winners, and ultimately, for me, the Atom takes the day. So there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful 2020, and that we all go forth into this coming year with 2020 vision as for the future of the knife industry. Okay. Anyways, there you go. Hope this is interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.